Hello, I'm David Fansler. In Lesson 2 of how to use the GLG Community Toolkit, we're going to look at the fact that a program running the toolkit consists of two parts. First is the C program. The second part is the drawing. The drawing is created by a program from GLG, and it consists of a viewport with all the widgets inside. Now, the widgets are the dials and buttons and switches, etc. So that's the important takeaway from this particular lesson. So let's jump right into it and take a look. A standard program running GLG Toolkit consists of two parts. One is the C program, which we see on the left. Now it has some special parts to it, but we'll talk about those in a few minutes. On the right hand side we have the drawing. The drawing is what contains all of the items that we can obtain from the GLG Toolkit. In this case, this example that we saw in Lesson 1 has 3 dials, 2 buttons, and a slider. Now, this area of light gray that is a rectangle around the thing is called a viewport. It's the base level of the drawing. The sliders, the buttons, the dials, everything else has to be inside of the viewport. Now, if we click on the viewport, notice that we get a frame around it. If that frame is around the entire viewport, so it contains everything, so we can actually move that around if we wanted to, using that point in the center of the drawing. To address the individual widgets inside, we click on this down arrow. And doing that brings us to this page, which looks a little bit different. So now if we click on that, we get wrap around on it, and you can actually use those things if you want to change the aspect ratio of the dial. If you right click on it, then you see properties and public properties. So let's click on properties, and it brings up this window, and the name of this widget is dial pressure. Now that name was given by the programmer. It doesn't come with that name. It has no name when it first is put on the viewport. So, and it's by this name that we can address this widget inside of our program. If we take a look right quick over on our program, let's see, okay, down here under setting the initial parameters, dial pressure \low. Now, low is another attribute of the dial pressure. Notice that right here under this list of things, there's a whole list of attributes here that can be set and can be changed by the program. All right, so dial pressure is what we address this item by. These are the attributes of it, and we address those by saying dial pressure \low, or dial pressure \high, or alarm 4, or any of these things that are there. Now let's take a look at the program itself. Notice that here's the function prototypes. The standard things are included. The only extra one that is not normal is the GLG API. So we have to include that. Update interval. The program will update itself every so often according to whatever interval you set. Now 100 stands for 100 milliseconds. So that's every 1/10 of a second. Tags. Tags are another way of talking about the attributes of each widget. I tend to use resources, but you can look up tags in the manual that you can download from GLG. Here's GLG main. This is the main part of the program, and we leave this alone basically. We change a few things in it. For example, here's the drawing. Load a drawing from a file. GLG load widget from file, and the name of the drawing is dashboard.g, which is what we see up here at the top of the window that has the drawing in it. Set size, that sets the actual size of the drawing. There's two ways you can do it. You can either define this as being a certain size, or you can define with set size what size the drawing is. Set resource, this is what appears on top of the drawing window when you're actually running the program. Going down a little bit, the next function that we have here is the initialization drawing, which sets the pressure lows, the pressure highs to whatever we want them to be. Now this is not displayed, rather this is information, as we saw a minute ago. These are attributes within this program. So if we were to look at high and low on the dial when the program's running, for pressure it's going to be 0 and 50, which it is right now. For slider pressure it goes up to 50, which is all that the PSI dial does. And the voltage, the high voltage is 120, which is outside of the range of the dial. So these are not displayed. These are things that are located within these attributes. Update drawing is what runs every 1/10 of a second. It's called every 1/10 of a second to update the drawing. Remember that in the example, the voltage and the amperage had data that were generated by the program. That's what's done here with the get data function. This sets a range of what it can be, and so it's a different function. It's down at the bottom. Here we have if use tags. So if we're going to use tags, we're going to use these functions: GLG set D tag, drawing voltage, GLG true. Again, this is a tag that goes with the voltmeter, and voltage is the actual value that's loaded into the voltmeter, and it's obtained right here by get data. The same thing for the current meter for reading amps. If you don't have tags, which again I typically use resources and not tags, then you GLG set D, that's a double, a resource, and the drawing, that's what this is, and inside the drawing is the dial voltage, and then the attribute is the value, and again here's the voltage is what's put into this value. And lastly, we make the changes visible with the GLG update on the drawing, and we reinstall the timer so that it triggers in another 1/10 of a second. Two programs here. One is start the periodic updates. So start updates is what starts the timer. Stop update stops the timer. Here in input function is where you will add your program items to actually collect data to tell where it's going to be displayed. Now, each resource or each widget over here has 3 messages that it can send out. One is a format, one's an action, and one's an origin. And we use those to determine which one of the items has triggered an action. For example, here we're looking to see if the button is equal to 0. If it is, then we look down here at the action to see if it's activated. Or have they pushed the quit button? Otherwise, we're going to check to see if the value has changed. If it has changed, then we're going to change the start button if its origin is changed. The on state, you're getting the value of that. The stop update, start update. So this is the start button up here, the stop button. If it's 0, then it's going to stop the updates. If the value is 1, then it's going to start the updates. So that's a simple switch based on 2 values that the start button can have. Down here, this is the slider. If the slider format is equal to 0 and their slider pressure is equal to 0, then we need to look to see what the value of the slider is, and we're going to set that resource a double again in the viewport to dial pressure \value. This is the set size. We don't need to worry about that. We just call it. And down here is the get data. This is what generates data for demonstration purposes for the voltage and the amps in this particular program. So in this lesson, all I wanted to do was to show you that there's 2 parts to every program running the GLG Toolkit. There is the C program that deals with the widgets, which we give a name to, so like slider pressure or quit button, start button, window, which we can delete the whole thing. It's a way of closing the program. Dial voltage, dial amps. That's the name we give to each one of these things so we can address the attributes of each one, such as the value. The other part of the program is the actual drawing itself. And each widget has attributes to it. We name each widget, and then we can use that name with a \, to address the attributes of the widget itself. So there's a quick look at the basic setup of a GLG Toolbox program. I hope this all makes sense. You can actually download documentation from GenLogic. Let's go over there right quick. All right, so here's the documentation. Here's the GLG Toolkit tutorials and toolkit documentation. I highly recommend that you download these 3 in particular: the user guide and builder reference manual. This program that creates the viewport with the widgets inside is the builder program. The program and reference manual, that deals with these items here, like GLG set D resource. That's what's inside of here. And then the widget reference manual deals with all the different widgets that you can have in a program. We'll take a look at where we get those widgets from in lesson 3. Until then, happy programming to you, and this is David Fansler saying so long.